The sun didn't set over Red Hollow so much as it bled out across the horizon, painting the dirt streets the color of old wounds. Elias Turner stood in the doorway of his general store, one hand gripping the weathered frame like it might keep him upright, the other holding a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched in an hour. The liquor had gone warm. He didn't care. 3 days. Three days since the letter arrived, slipped under his door in the dead of night like a snake through tall grass. No signature, no threats, just 4 words in handwriting he'd recognize in his sleep. I know what you did. He'd burned it, watched the paper curl and blacken in the stove, ash floating up like the ghosts it represented. Didn't matter. The words were already carved into his skull, repeating with every heartbeat, every breath, every moment he stood here waiting for something he couldn't name but knew was coming. The street was empty. It usually was these days. Red Hollow was dying the way most frontier towns died. Slowly, one boarded window at a time, one family packing up and leaving in the night. The railroad had chosen another route. The silver mine had played out. The only thing keeping the town alive now was Barrett Crow. And that was like saying a noose kept a man upright. Elias drained the whiskey in one burning swallow and turned back inside. The store smelled like dust and leather, and the particular kind of decay that came from selling things nobody needed anymore. Half the shelves were empty. The other half held goods he'd ordered 2 years ago that he'd never sell. Flour weaveled over. Bolts of fabric nobody would buy because there was nobody left to impress. He was restocking ammunition, the one thing that still moved in Red Hollow, when he heard it. Hoofbeats. His hands froze, a box of 45 cartridges suspended in midair. The sound was singular, deliberate. One horse, one rider. Coming down the main street at a walk that said the man on top wasn't in a hurry and didn't need to be. Elias set the box down carefully, like it might explode if he moved too fast. He walked to the window, staying to the side, and looked out through the gap in the boards he'd nailed up last winter. The rider was dust and shadow at first, more impression than man, but as he came closer, details emerged like a photograph developing in chemicals. Tall, lean, wearing a long coat the color of dried blood, hat pulled low enough to hide his face, 2 guns on his hips, worn low and tied down, not the guns of a man who carried them for show. Elias's heart was a drum in his chest, each beat loud enough he was sure the whole town could hear it. The rider stopped, right in front of the store. For a long moment, neither moved. The horse stood patient, head down, too tired or too well-trained to fidget. The man sat still, hands resting on the pommel, looking at nothing in particular and everything at once. Then he dismounted. The movement was economical, practiced. Boots hit dirt with a sound like a coffin closing. He tied the horse to the post, pulled a canteen from the saddle, and took a long drink. Adam's apple working, dust on his shoulders like a second skin. Elias couldn't breathe. The man turned toward the store, and for the first time, Elias saw his face beneath the brim of that hat. Cole Harlan. The name hit him like a fist to the gut. He actually staggered back a step, hand going to the counter for support. No, it couldn't be. Cole Harlan was dead. Had to be. Men like Cole Harlan didn't live to 30 in this country. They died in alleys or burned out homesteads or unnamed graves on the prairie. But here he was. Older, harder. The boy Elias remembered, barely 20, all raw anger and untempered grief, was gone. What walked toward his store now was something else, something filed down and sharpened and pointed at the world like a loaded gun. Cole pushed through the door. The bell rang, cheerful, absurd, and he stopped just inside, letting his eyes adjust to the dim interior. He didn't look at Elias. Not yet. Just stood there, taking in the nearly empty shelves, the dust, the smell of a place that was already half ghost. "Help you?" Elias's voice came out rough. He cleared his throat. "Looking for something specific?" Cole's gaze slid to him then. Blue eyes, pale as winter ice, set in a face that looked like it had been carved from granite and left out in the weather too long. A scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, pulling one corner of his mouth into something that might have been a smile on another man. "Water for the horse," Cole said. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. That made it worse somehow. "Cartridges. Beans if you have them." "Got all 3. Elias moved behind the counter, grateful for something to do with his hands. He pulled out a sack of dried beans, set it on the scarred wood, reached for the ammunition. What caliber? .45 long Colt. Of course it was. Elias pulled down 2 boxes, set them next to the beans. His hands were shaking. He clasped them together, squeezed until the knuckles went white. Cole was watching him now. Really watching. Those pale eyes moving over Elias's face like he was reading a book written in a language only he understood. You all right, friend? The word friend sat between them like a stone. Fine. Elias tried to smile. It felt like his face might crack. Just been a long day, long week, truth be told. I know the feeling. Cole moved to the window, looked out at the street. His hands stayed loose at his sides, but Elias could see the way his body held itself, coiled and ready. A man who expected trouble the way other men expected sunrise. Quiet town, Cole said. Dying town. Elias busied himself wrapping the beans in brown paper, tying it with string. Most folks left already. The ones who stayed, well, they got their reasons. What's yours? The question was casual. The weight behind it wasn't. Elias's hand stilled. Too old to start over. Too stubborn to quit. That's not a reason. That's an excuse. Before Elias could answer, the door opened again. 3 men walked in, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. They wore the same clothes they always wore, dusty range clothes, guns on their hips, boots that had walked through too much blood to ever come clean. But it was the way they carried themselves that marked them. Crow's men. You could always tell. They moved like they owned whatever ground they stood on because, in Red Hollow, they did. The one in front, Deacon, they called him, though Elias doubted that was his real name, smiled when he saw Cole. It was the kind of smile a cat gave before it bit the head off a mouse. Well now, Deacon said. Fresh meat. Cole didn't turn around. He stayed at the window looking out, but Elias saw his shoulders shift slightly, settling into something. Just passing through, Cole said. That's so. Deacon stepped further into the store. The other 2 fanned out on either side. Professional. They'd done this before. Funny thing, Mr. Crow don't much like strangers passing through, makes him nervous. And when Mr. Crow gets nervous, we get motivated to reduce his concerns, you understand? I understand you're between me and the door. Deacon's smile widened. That a problem? Could be. The air went tight. Elias could feel it, the way you could feel a storm coming before the first drop of rain. He opened his mouth to say, what? He didn't know. Stop this. Calm down. Get out of my store. But Cole spoke first, and his voice was still quiet, still almost gentle. Elias, he said, these men work for Barrett Crow? Elias froze. Cole knew his name, had known it all along. Yes, they do. And Barrett Crow runs this town? Has for 5 years now. Cole nodded, like this confirmed something he'd already suspected. He turned around slowly, hands still loose, still easy. But there was something in his eyes now, something old and dark and patient. That's interesting, Cole said. See, I knew a Barrett Crow once, long time ago, back when he was just a hired gun with ambitions too big for his talent. We had a disagreement. Deacon's smile was gone now. You want to elaborate on that? Not particularly. Mr. Crow's gonna want to know, I know what he'll want. Cole's voice didn't rise, but something in it changed, hardened. You can tell him Cole Harlan's in town. He'll remember the name. The effect was immediate. Deacon went pale. The man to his left actually took a step back, hand drifting toward his gun, and then stopping, like he'd thought better of it. Harlan, Deacon breathed, you're supposed to be dead? Cole's mouth twisted, not quite a smile. Yeah, I get that a lot. For a long moment, nobody moved. The store was silent, except for the tick of the clock on the wall and the rasp of Elias's breathing, too fast, too loud. Then Deacon made his choice. His hand went for his gun. What happened next happened fast enough that Elias's brain couldn't quite process it as individual movements. There was just before and after, and in the space between, the world reorganized itself around violence. Cole moved, not fast. Faster than fast. Like he'd known what Deacon would do before Deacon knew it himself. His right hand blurred, gun-clearing leather in a motion so smooth it looked like magic, and the first shot punched Deacon back into the shelves behind him. Cans of peaches and tomatoes exploded, red juice mixing with redder blood. The second man got his gun halfway out before Cole's second shot took him in the chest. He folded like a puppet with cut strings. The third man, younger, dumber, or braver than his companions, actually got off a shot. It went wide, splintering wood somewhere behind Cole's head. Cole's third shot didn't miss. The man spun, crashed through the front window in a shower of glass, and lay still in the street. 3 seconds, maybe 4. 3 men dead, and Cole Harlan standing there with smoke curling from his barrel, face expressionless as stone. Elias realized he was on the floor. He didn't remember getting there. His ears were ringing, the gunshots still echoing in the enclosed space, and there was a smell like copper and gunpowder and something else. Something primal. Cole walked to the door, looked out. The street was filling with people now, drawn by the shots, faces in windows, men in doorways, all of them staring at the body in the broken glass. "You know what you just did?" Elias's voice shook. "You know what this means?" Cole reloaded his gun with the same economical movements he'd used to dismount his horse. Click of the cylinder opening, brass cartridges dropping, new ones sliding in, click of the cylinder closing. "Yeah," he said, "it means we're going to have a conversation." He turned, and those pale eyes fixed on Elias like nails. "Because you're going to tell me, Elias Turner, exactly what you did 10 years ago that got my brother killed." The words hit Elias like bullets. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. I never... Don't." Cole's voice was still quiet, still gentle, but there was iron underneath now. "I've been looking for you for a long time, followed a lot of cold trails, dead ends, but I knew eventually, if I waited long enough, the world would get small enough that our paths would cross. And here we are." Elias tried to stand. His legs wouldn't cooperate. "Cole, listen to me." "I am listening. I've been listening for 10 years, to every rumor, every whisper, every piece of the puzzle. And you know what I learned?" Cole holstered his gun. "I learned that my brother, James, you remember James, came to Red Hollow 10 years ago, before Crow took over, before any of this. He came looking for work, and he found it, guarding a payroll shipment for a mine that was still operational back then. Cole, that shipment never made it to its destination. The guards were killed. The money disappeared. And one of those guards was James Harlan, aged 23, who died face down in the dirt with 3 bullets in his back." Elias's vision was swimming. "It wasn't like that." "Then tell me what it was like." Cole crouched down, bringing himself eye level with Elias. "Because the way I heard it, someone gave up the route. Someone told the bandits exactly where that shipment would be, exactly when, and in exchange for that information, that someone got to live, got to walk away, maybe even got paid." "No." The word came out weak, broken. "The bandits were led by a man named Barrett Crow, who now runs this town. And the man who gave him the information, the man who got my brother killed, was a clerk at the mining office. A man named Elias Turner." Silence. Outside, Elias could hear voices, shouting. Someone was running. The town was waking up, realizing something had shifted. The balance they'd lived under for 5 years had just tilted. "I didn't know," Elias whispered. "I swear to you, Cole, I didn't know they'd kill anyone. Crow said it would be easy. In and out, nobody hurt. He said he lied. Yes, and you believed him. I was desperate. The mine was closing. I had debts. Crow offered me a way out, and I took it. And I've been paying for it every day since." Cole stood, looked down at him. And for a moment, Elias saw something flicker across that stone face. Not forgiveness, not even understanding, just recognition of one broken thing looking at another. "Yeah," Cole said softly. "I bet you have." The door crashed open. More of Crow's men, 6 or 7 of them, guns drawn. They stopped when they saw the bodies, when they saw Cole. The man in front, older, harder, with a face like tree bark, pointed his rifle at Cole's chest. "Drop the gun, mister. Nice and slow." Cole didn't move. "You shoot me, you'll get off 1 round, maybe. I'll get off 6. You want to do that math? There's 7 of us." "I counted. Makes it interesting. The standoff held. 7 guns pointing at one man, and somehow, impossibly, it felt even, balanced. Then a voice cut through the tension, calm, measured, carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Gentlemen, let's not redecorate Mr. Turner's store any more than it already has been." The men parted, and Barrett Crow walked through. He was older than Elias remembered, grayer, but age had refined him rather than diminished him. He wore a black suit, clean despite the dust, and moved with the confidence of a man who knew exactly how dangerous he was and didn't need to prove it. His eyes found Cole, and something passed between them. Recognition, memory, old business unfinished. "Cole Harlan," Crow said. "I'll be damned." "Probably," Cole agreed. Crow smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Last I heard, you were dead. People keep saying that. And yet here you are, in my town, killing my men." Crow looked at the bodies, expression unchanging. "That's going to require a response." "I'd be disappointed if it didn't." They stared at each other. 2 men who'd walked through fire and come out the other side carrying torches. Crow pulled out a pocket watch, checked it, snapped it closed. "It's late, and I'm not fond of conducting business in the street like common thugs. Tomorrow, dawn. You know the place." "I know it." "Good." Crow turned to leave, then paused, looked at Elias, still on the floor, and something almost like pity crossed his face. "You should have left when you had the chance, Turner. Some debts. You can't pay with money." Then he was gone, and his men with him, and the store was silent again except for the sound of Elias trying not to cry. Cole walked to the counter, picked up his beans and ammunition, set down coins next to them. Exact change. "You're just going to leave?" Elias's voice broke. "After all this?" Cole looked at him. "What did you expect? Absolution? Revenge?" He shook his head. "I didn't come here for you, Elias. You're just the thread. Crow's the knot. He'll kill you." "Maybe. This is my fault. All of it." "Yeah." Cole picked up his purchases. "It is. But that's the thing about guilt. It doesn't actually change anything. My brother's still dead. You're still the man who sold him out. And tomorrow, Crow and I are going to settle something that's been waiting 10 years to get settled." He walked to the door, stepped over the blood, the glass, the wreckage. "Cole." Elias forced himself to stand. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." Cole paused, didn't turn around. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Me too." Then he was gone, leading his horse down the street toward the stable, and Elias was alone with the bodies and the broken glass and the weight of 10 years pressing down like the hand of something vast and merciless. Outside, the sun finished bleeding out. Darkness came to Red Hollow the way it always did, not as an ending, but as a continuation of something that had started long ago and wouldn't stop until every debt was paid. Elias closed the store, locked the door, went upstairs to his room and sat on the bed with his head in his hands. Tomorrow, at dawn, 2 men would face each other in the street. One would die, maybe both. And when it was over, Red Hollow would be different. Or maybe it would be exactly the same. That was the thing about frontier justice. It settled scores, but it didn't heal wounds. It just carved new ones, deeper, waiting for the next man to come along and make them bleed. Elias didn't sleep that night. He sat at his window and watched the stars wheel overhead and thought about all the choices that had led him here. The small compromises, the desperate bargains, the moment he'd traded another man's life for his own comfort and told himself it would be all right. It hadn't been all right. It would never be all right. And tomorrow, when the sun rose over Red Hollow and 2 men drew their guns in the street, Elias Turner would watch. Because that was his penance. Not to look away, not to pretend it wasn't happening, to witness the consequences of what he'd done, to stand there and watch guilt become blood, become dust. The debt was coming due. And in the frontier, debts were always paid in full. The stable was at the far end of town, past the shuttered assay office and the saloon that still had a few dim lights burning inside. Cole led his horse through the darkness, boots crunching on dirt that hadn't seen rain in weeks. The animal was tired, head hanging low, and he felt a pang of something close to guilt for pushing it this far without proper rest. The stable doors stood open. Inside, a single lantern cast long shadows across empty stalls and hay, that smelled like it had been sitting too long. An old man sat on a stool near the entrance, whittling something that might have been a horse or might have been nothing at all. He looked up when Cole approached, squinted, then went back to his whittling. "Need a stall for the night," Cole said. "$1." The old man didn't look up. "2 if you want grain." Cole pulled out coins, set them on the barrel next to the man. "Grain, water, rub him down if you can." "I can." The old man pocketed the money, stood with a crackling of joints that sounded like kindling snapping. He took the reins, ran a practiced hand down the horse's neck. "You're the one killed Deacon and his boys." It wasn't a question. News travels fast. News is about the only thing that does travel in Red Hollow. The old man led the horse to a stall, started unbuckling the saddle. "You know what you walked into?" "I got an idea." Idea ain't the same as knowing. The saddle came off, heavy with the weight of travel and time. Crow's got maybe 20 men. Good ones. Men who've killed before and will again without blinking. You take him on, you take them all on. That the part where you tell me to leave? The old man smiled, showing gaps where teeth used to be. "Son, I stopped telling people what to do about 30 years ago, just making conversation." He grabbed a brush, started working on the horse's coat. Dust rose in clouds. "Though if I was a betting man, and I used to be, before my wife made me quit, I'd say you ain't here by accident. You got business with Crow that goes back." Cole leaned against a post, feeling the day settle into his bones. His shoulder ached where he'd slept on it wrong 3 nights ago. His hands were steady, but they wouldn't be forever. Nobody's were. "We crossed paths," Cole said. "Long time ago. And you lived to tell about it. That's something." The old man worked in silence for a moment, brush moving in long strokes. "Crow showed up here about 5 years back. Town was already dying, but it was dying slow, natural. Then he came along and bought the saloon, then the hotel, then the bank, what was left of it. Started bringing in men, rough men, the kind that make decent folks nervous just by standing still." "And the law?" "We had a sheriff. Name was Hobbs. Good man. Fair. He tried to push back when Crow started squeezing people." The old man's hands paused. "They found him in the street one morning, shot in the back. Never did find who did it, but we all knew." Cole felt something cold settle in his chest. The pattern was familiar. He'd seen it before, in other towns, other lives. Men like Crow didn't build empires. They carved them out of weakness and fear. Nobody tried to stop him after that. With what? The old man's laugh was bitter. "There's maybe 40 people left in Red Hollow, most of them old, all of them tired. Crow's got guns and money and the kind of patience that comes from knowing time's on his side. He doesn't have to kill everyone, just enough to make the point." The horse nickered softly, leaning into the brushing, content, or as close to it as an animal could get in a place like this. "You got a name?" Cole asked. "Henry. Henry Walsh." The old man set down the brush, picked up a bucket. "And you're Cole Harlan. Heard of you. Stories, mostly. The kind men tell when they're trying to convince themselves the world's got some balance to it. Stories lie. Most things do." Henry filled the bucket from a pump in the corner, brought it back. The horse drank deep, water sloshing. "But sometimes they tell a different kind of truth. The kind about what a man's capable of when he's got nothing left to lose." Cole didn't answer. There wasn't anything to say to that. Henry finished with the horse, closed the stall gate, and turned to face Cole directly. "You planning to die tomorrow?" "Not particularly." "Good. Because if you do, Crow's going to take it out on everyone left in this town. That's how he works. He'll make an example. Burn a building, hurt someone, just to remind us all what happens when his authority gets questioned. Then I'll try not to die. You do that." Henry picked up his whittling knife and the piece of wood. "Bunkhouse is out back. Ain't much, but the roof don't leak, and the rats are small. You need anything else, holler." Cole grabbed his saddlebags, his rifle. "Appreciate it." "Don't appreciate it yet. You survive tomorrow, then you can appreciate it." The bunkhouse was exactly what Henry had promised. 4 walls, a roof, and a cot that had seen better decades. Cole dropped his gear, lit the lamp, and sat down to clean his guns. The ritual was automatic, learned so long ago he could do it in his sleep. Oil and cloth and the smell of metal. Each part disassembled, checked, cleaned, reassembled. The repetition was meditative. It gave his hands something to do while his mind worked through everything else. Crow. The name still tasted like copper, like the blood that had pooled in the dirt 10 years ago when Cole had found his brother's body. James had been younger by 3 years, lighter in spirit, quicker to laugh. He'd looked up to Cole with the kind of blind faith that made Cole uncomfortable because he knew he didn't deserve it. And then one day James was just gone, riding off to take a job guarding a payroll shipment, promising to be back in a week with money enough to get them through the winter. Cole had been working a claim up north, breaking his back for copper that wasn't there. By the time he got the news, James had been in the ground for 2 weeks. The details had come slow, piece by piece. A sheriff who'd done his best but had no leads. Witnesses who'd seen nothing. A robbery that had gone wrong, or maybe had gone exactly right, depending on who you asked. 3 guards dead. Money gone. Trail cold. Cole had started digging. It was all he'd known how to do. Follow threads, ask questions, pay for information with the last of his money, and then with favors, and then with threats when favors ran out. He'd learned about the clerk who'd sold out the route, about the man who'd led the robbery, about the way Crow had disappeared after, vanishing into the territories like smoke. 5 years of searching, 5 years of dead ends and false leads, and nights when Cole had wondered if maybe it was better to just let it go. Let the dead stay dead. Move on. But he couldn't. Because James had trusted him, had looked up to him, had died thinking his big brother would make things right. And Cole Harlan didn't know how to do much, but he knew how to keep a promise. He finished with the guns, loaded them, set them on the crate next to the cot. Then he lay back, still dressed, hands behind his head, and stared at the ceiling. Sleep would come or it wouldn't. Either way, dawn was only a few hours off. Somewhere in town, a dog barked. Once, twice, then silence. Cole closed his eyes. The dream came like it always did, not as images but as feelings. The weight of a body in his arms, the smell of blood and gunpowder. His brother's face, pale and still, eyes open and seeing nothing. The knowledge, bone deep and permanent, that he'd failed the one person who'd counted on him most. He woke before dawn, throat tight, hands clenched. The room was dark except for the faint gray seeping through the cracks in the walls. He sat up, pulled on his boots, checked his guns again even though he'd checked them 3 hours ago. Outside the air was cool and still, the kind of stillness that came before the world woke up and remembered it had business to attend to. Cole walked to the pump, worked the handle until water came and splashed his face. The cold was sharp, clarifying. He heard footsteps behind him, turned to find Elias standing there, looking like he hadn't slept either. The shopkeeper's face was drawn, eyes red-rimmed, and he held a cup of coffee in hands that shook just enough to be noticeable. "Figured you'd be up," Elias said. His voice was rough. "Brought you this." Cole took the coffee. It was black and bitter and exactly what he needed. "Thanks." They stood in silence, drinking. The sky was lightening now, stars fading one by one like candles being snuffed out. Somewhere a rooster crowed, optimistic or stupid enough to think a new day meant something. "I need to tell you the whole story," Elias said finally. Before whatever happens. You don't owe me that. Maybe not, but I owe it to myself." Elias sat down on the edge of the water trough, set his cup beside him. "I told you I was desperate. That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth." Cole waited. The coffee steamed in his hands. "I had a daughter," Elias said. The words came out careful, like he was handling something fragile. "Mary, she was 8 when her mother died. Fever took her in the span of 3 days, and then it was just me and Mary. I did my best. Worked at the mine office, made enough to get by. Wasn't much, but it was enough." He paused, swallowed hard. Then Mary got sick, that different kind of sick, something in her lungs. Doctor said she needed medicine, special medicine from back east. Said it would cost $200. Might as well have said $2,000. I didn't have it, couldn't borrow it. The mine was already closing. Everyone was broke or getting there. Cole could see where this was going, could see the shape of it forming like a shadow. Crow found me in the saloon one night. I'd been drinking, feeling sorry for myself. He sat down, bought me another drink, and started talking. Said he knew about Mary, said he knew I needed money, said he could help if I was willing to help him back. The shipment route. Yeah. Elias's voice cracked. He made it sound simple. Easy. Nobody would get hurt, he said. They'd just take the money and go. The guards would hand it over without a fight. Everyone goes home safe. And you believed him. I wanted to believe him. That's different. Elias looked up and his eyes were wet. I told myself I didn't have a choice, that Mary's life was worth more than some abstract notion of right and wrong. I took his money, $200, exactly what I needed, and I told him when the shipment would go through and which route they'd take. The sun was cresting the horizon now, painting the sky red and gold. Beautiful. If you were the kind of person who could still see beauty in things. The next day I bought the medicine, gave it to Mary. She got better, started breathing easier, color coming back to her cheeks. I told myself I'd done the right thing, that saving her was all that mattered. And then 3 days later, I heard about the robbery, about the guards who'd been killed, about the man named James Harlan who died with bullets in his back. Elias's voice dropped to almost a whisper. I went to Crow, confronted him. He just smiled, said these things happen, said I should be grateful my daughter was alive and leave well enough alone. Cole's jaw was tight. What happened to Mary? Elias was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was empty. Fever came back 6 months later. Different fever, or maybe the same one. Medicine didn't work this time. She died in her sleep on a Tuesday morning. I buried her next to her mother. The words hung in the air like smoke. So I traded your brother's life for 6 more months with my daughter, Elias said, and then I lost her anyway. That's the truth. That's what I've been living with for 10 years. Cole didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to rage, to grab Elias and shake him until something broke. But another part, the part that had seen enough of the world to know how it worked, just felt tired. Why'd you stay? Cole asked. After Mary died. Why not leave? Where would I go? Elias looked around at the dying town, the empty streets. This is all I got. This store, these people who won't talk to me but won't run me out either. It's my punishment, staying here, watching Crow walk around like he owns the place, knowing I helped him get it. He stood, picked up his cup. I don't expect you to forgive me. Don't expect you to understand. Just wanted you to know it wasn't just greed. It was love. Desperate, stupid love that made me do a terrible thing. Doesn't make it right. But it's the truth. Cole finished his coffee, set the cup down. You said Crow's been here 5 years. Where was he before that? Ran guns up near the border from what I heard. Made enough money to go legitimate. Came here because nobody else wanted the place. He married? Got family? No family, no ties, just him and his men and this town he's slowly crushing to death. The sky was fully light now. The street was still empty, but it wouldn't be for long. People would be waking up, looking out their windows, waiting to see what happened next. You should get inside, Cole said. Stay there until this is done. I'm going to watch. Elias's voice was firm. I owe you that much. James, I mean. I'm going to watch, and I'm going to remember. That's all I got left to give. Cole studied him for a moment, then nodded. Your choice. He walked back to the bunkhouse, strapped on his guns, checked them one more time. The weight was familiar, comforting. He'd worn these guns for so long they felt like part of him, extensions of his will made metal and leather. When he stepped back outside, Henry was waiting. Crow's men are already positioning themselves, the old man said. Rooftops, alleyways. They ain't planning to let this be a fair fight. Didn't expect them to. You got a plan? Walk out there, see what happens. Henry snorted. That's a terrible plan. You got a better one? Yeah, don't walk out there. Cole smiled despite himself. I'll take it under advisement. He started toward the main street. Henry fell in beside him, moving surprisingly quick for a man his age. You know, Henry said, I seen a lot of men try to stand up to Crow. Good men. Brave men. They all ended up the same way. Dead? Worse. Broken. Crow don't just kill you. He makes sure everyone knows what happens when you cross him. Makes it hurt. Makes it last. I'll keep that in mind. They reached the edge of the street. The sun was fully up now, beating down with the promise of another scorching day. Cole could see them, Crow's men, positioned just like Henry said. 2 on the roof of the saloon, 1 in the alley next to the hotel. Another at the far end of the street trying to look casual while his hand rested on his gun. And in the middle of the street, standing alone, was Barrett Crow. He wore the same black suit from last night, immaculate despite the dust and heat. His hands hung loose at his sides, and on his hip was a single gun in a holster that had been used enough to be broken in, but not so much as to be worn out. Cole stepped into the street. The world seemed to hold its breath. "Right on time," Crow called out. His voice carried clear and easy. "I appreciate punctuality in a man." Cole walked forward until there was maybe 30 feet between them. Close enough to talk. Close enough to shoot. The math of distance and bullets. "Called you out, didn't I?" Cole said. "You did. And here I am." Crow smiled. "Though I'm curious, do you actually expect to walk away from this?" "I expect to finish what we started 10 years ago." "Ah, yes. Your brother. James, wasn't it?" Crow's tone was conversational, clinical. "I remember him, young, idealistic, made the mistake of thinking honor was worth more than gold. He made the mistake of trusting you'd keep your word. Same thing, really." Crow took a step forward. Just one. Testing. "I told him and the other guards they could walk away. All they had to do was put down their guns and step aside. Simple, clean. They didn't. No. They had this quaint notion about duty, about protecting what they'd been paid to protect, so we had to shoot them." Crow shrugged. "Unfortunate, but necessary. Business is business." Cole's hand stayed loose, but everything in him was coiling tighter. "You talk about killing men like you're discussing the weather. Because in the grand scheme of things, it's about as significant. Men die. That's what they do. The question is whether their death means something or whether it's just noise. James's death meant something. To you, maybe. To me, he was an obstacle that needed removing." Crow's smile widened. "Just like you're an obstacle now. The difference is, I've learned from my mistakes. I'm not giving you the option to walk away." The air went electric. Cole could feel it, the moment stretching out like a wire pulled tight. Behind Crow, a door opened. People were coming out now. Elias, Henry, others. Old men and women who'd lived in Red Hollow long enough to see it die by inches. They lined the boardwalks, silent witnesses to whatever came next. "All these people watching," Cole said. "You going to kill me in front of them? Why not? Let them see what happens when someone challenges me. It's good business. Keeps everyone else in line." Crow's hand drifted closer to his gun. Casual. Deliberate. "Last chance, Harlan. You walk away now. I'll let you live. You'll leave Red Hollow and you'll never come back, but you'll live. That's more than most men get." "I didn't come here to walk away." "No, I suppose you didn't." Crow's eyes went cold. Flat. "Shame. You had potential. In another life, we might have been friends." "I doubt that." "Me too." For a moment, neither moved. Two men standing in the sun, shadows pooling at their feet, the weight of history pressing down like a physical thing. Then Crow's hand moved. Fast. Faster than Cole expected. The gun-clearing leather in a blur of motion that spoke of practice and skill and the kind of confidence that came from never having lost. But Cole was already moving too. His draw was different, not faster, but more efficient. Economy of motion learned from 10 years of surviving when other men didn't. His hand found the grip, thumb pulling the hammer back even as the gun came up, and the world narrowed to a single point of focus. Crow's gun was level. Aimed. Finger tightening on the trigger. Cole fired. The shot was thunder in the stillness. The bullet took Crow in the right shoulder, spinning him, his own shot going wild and high, punching through a window somewhere behind Cole. Crow staggered, but didn't fall. His left hand crossed his body, going for the gun that had fallen from his right. Pain written across his face, but not stopping him, not even slowing him down. Cole fired again. This one caught Crow in the chest. Center mass, the kind of shot that put men down and kept them there. Crow fell to his knees, blood spreading across the front of that immaculate black suit, turning it dark and wet. His hand was still moving, still reaching for the gun, and Cole felt something almost like respect. The third shot hit Crow in the head. He fell forward into the dust and didn't move again. Silence. Cole stood there, gun still raised, smoke curling from the barrel. waiting for Crow's men to make their move, waiting for the bullets to come from the rooftops and alleyways. But nothing happened. The men on the roof stood frozen. The one in the alley took a step back, then another, and the one at the end of the street turned and walked away, not running, but not staying either. Henry stepped forward, looked at Crow's body, then at Cole. "Well," he said, "that's that, I guess." Cole lowered his gun. His hands were steady, but he could feel the adrenaline starting to drain, leaving him hollow and tired. He'd imagined this moment 1,000 times. The confrontation, the shooting, Crow falling. But he'd never imagined what came after. The silence, the emptiness, the fact that James was still dead and always would be. Elias was walking toward him now, face pale, hands shaking. He stopped a few feet away, looking down at Crow's body like he couldn't quite believe it was real. "Is it over?" Elias asked. "For him it is. I mean, the town. Crow's men. Are they going to—" "They'll leave." Cole holstered his gun. Crow was the center. Without him, they're just hired guns with nobody to pay them. They'll scatter, find new work, new bosses. "And us?" Cole looked around at the people on the boardwalks, old and tired and beaten down by years of living under Crow's thumb. Free now, or as free as people ever got in places like this. "That's up to you," he said. He walked to Crow's body, knelt down, and went through the pockets, found a wallet thick with cash, a pocket watch, a key on a chain. "What are you doing?" Elias asked. Crow owned buildings, businesses. Somebody's got to deal with that. Cole handed the key to Henry. "Bank vault. Whatever's in there probably belongs to the town more than it belongs to him." Henry took the key, turned it over in his hands like it might bite. "You're just giving this away?" "I didn't come here for money." Cole stood, looked down at Crow one last time. The man who'd killed his brother. The man who'd built an empire on fear and blood and the weakness of others, dead in the dirt like anyone else. It should have felt like something. Victory, justice, closure. Just felt tired. "I'm going to get my horse," Cole said. "Then I'm leaving." "Wait," Elias grabbed his arm. "You can't just, after everything, don't you want— Oh, want what?" Cole pulled his arm free, not rough but firm. "My brother back? Can't have that. Crow dead? Got that. What else is there?" "I don't know. Something, anything." Elias's voice broke. "Just don't leave thinking this didn't matter, that he didn't matter." Cole was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a worn photograph, edges soft from handling. He looked at it once, James's face, young and smiling, forever 23, then handed it to Elias. "You keep that," Cole said. "Remember what your choice cost. Not so you can punish yourself, so you can do better, make different choices, help people instead of selling them out." Elias took the photograph with trembling hands. Nobody deserves anything. We just get what we get and do what we can with it." Cole turned away. "You want to make things right? Start with that key. Use what's in the vault to help this town. Give people a reason to stay instead of a reason to leave. That's better than sorry. That's better than guilt." He walked toward the stable. Behind him, he could hear voices starting to rise. People talking, some crying. The sound of a town waking up from a long nightmare and not quite sure what to do next. Henry caught up with him at the stable door. "You really leaving?" "Nothing keeping me here." "Where you headed?" Cole shrugged. "Don't know, somewhere else." "That's a big place." "Yeah." Cole saddled his horse, checked the straps, made sure everything was secure. The animal was rested, fed, ready to go. "Appreciate you taking care of him. Appreciate you taking care of Crow." Henry hesitated. "For what it's worth, you did a good thing here today." "Killing a man's never good." "Maybe not, but killing the right man at the right time." Henry smiled. "That's about as close as we get." Cole led the horse out into the sunlight. The street was busy now, people gathered around Crow's body, others heading toward the bank with that key Henry held. The town was already changing, already becoming something different. He mounted up, settled into the saddle. From here he could see most of Red Hollow spread out before him, dying, maybe, but not dead yet. Elias was standing in front of his store, the photograph still in his hands. He raised one hand in something between a wave and a salute. Cole nodded back. Then he turned his horse and rode out of town the same way he'd ridden in, alone, dust rising behind him, the sun climbing higher in a sky that went on forever. He didn't look back. There was nothing behind him worth seeing. The frontier was full of towns like Red Hollow, places where people made bad choices and lived with the consequences. Places where men like Crow carved out kingdoms and men like James died for nothing. Places where guilt and grief sat heavy enough to crush you if you let them. Cole had learned a long time ago that you couldn't save everyone, couldn't fix everything, couldn't bring back the dead no matter how many of the living you put in the ground beside them. All you could do was keep moving, keep riding, find the next town, the next job, the next thing that needed doing. And maybe, if you were lucky, you'd die before the weight of it all got too heavy to carry. The road stretched ahead, empty and endless. Cole rode it without hurry, letting the horse set the pace. Behind him, Red Hollow faded into the distance. Another place he'd been. Another mark on a map that didn't matter anymore. 10 years he'd spent looking for Crow. 10 years of cold trails and dead ends and nights when he'd wondered if maybe revenge wasn't worth the price. Now he had his answer. It wasn't. But he'd paid it anyway, because some debts demanded payment even when the cost was everything you had left. James was still dead. Crow was dead too. And Cole Harlan was riding toward nothing in particular, carrying the weight of both those truths like stones in his pockets. The sun beat down. The dust rose. The frontier kept being the frontier, indifferent to the small dramas of men who thought their choices mattered. And somewhere behind him, in a dying town called Red Hollow, people were learning to live without fear for the first time in 5 years. Maybe that was enough. Maybe it wasn't. Cole didn't know. And as the miles stretched out and the town disappeared completely from view, he realized he didn't care. He was done. The debt was paid. Everything else was just noise. The horse started limping around noon. Cole felt it first as a hitch in the animal's gait, barely noticeable, but there. He dismounted, ran his hand down the right foreleg, and found heat near the hoof. Not bad yet, but it would be if he kept pushing. He cursed under his breath, looked around at the emptiness stretching in every direction, and made the calculation every rider dreaded: walk or risk crippling the horse permanently. He chose to walk. The sun was merciless, beating down on his hat and shoulders like something with weight and intent. His canteen was half empty. The nearest town, according to the last signpost, was 15 miles east, a place called Copper Springs that probably didn't exist anymore. Towns out here had a way of disappearing between one season and the next, swallowed by dust and economic reality. He led the horse slowly, letting it set the pace. His boots raised small clouds with each step. The landscape was rock and scrub and the occasional skeleton of something that had once been alive. Beautiful in its own harsh way, if you had the mind for it. Cole didn't. His thoughts kept circling back to Red Hollow, to Crow falling in the street, to Elias's face when Cole had handed him that photograph, to the weight of 10 years lifting and leaving nothing but emptiness in its place. He thought killing Crow would change something, fix something. But James was still dead, and Cole was still walking through the desert with a lame horse and nowhere particular to go. Some debts, it turned out, couldn't be paid. They could only be carried until the weight of them broke you or you found a way to set them down. Cole hadn't figured out how to do the second part yet. 3 hours of walking brought him to a creek bed. Dry, mostly, but there was enough water pooled in the shadows of rocks that the horse could drink. Cole filled his canteen, drank deep, and sat down in what passed for shade. His feet ached. His shoulder, the one that had taken a bullet 2 years ago and never quite healed right, was sending sharp pains up into his neck. He closed his eyes, just for a moment. When he opened them, the sun had moved and there was a man standing 20 feet away, watching him. Cole's hand went to his gun, but the man held up both hands, palms out. "Easy," the man said. "Just passing through. Saw you from the ridge and thought I'd check you were all right." He was older than Cole by maybe a decade, wearing trail clothes that had seen hard use and a hat with a hole in the brim. His horse, a sturdy mare that looked like she could walk forever, stood patient behind him. No visible weapons, but that didn't mean much. "I'm fine," Cole said. His hand stayed near his gun. "Horse looks lame. Good eye. I got liniment. Might help." The man gestured to his saddlebags. "Mind if I come closer?" Cole studied him. Read the lines in his face, the way he held himself. The particular kind of weariness that came from living long enough to know the world didn't owe you anything. Not a threat, probably. Slow, Cole said. The man approached carefully, keeping his hands visible. He dug into his saddlebag and pulled out a small bottle of something amber, uncorked it, and the smell of camphor and other things filled the air. May I? He nodded toward Cole's horse. Cole stood, stepped back, watched as the man examined the hoof, made a soft sound in his throat, and started working the liniment into the joint. The horse nickered, but didn't pull away. Not too bad, the man said. Needs rest more than anything. Push it now, you'll be walking for a week. How far to the next town? Copper Springs is gone, dried up last year, but there's a way station about 6 miles north. Woman named Sarah runs it. She'll let you stable the horse. Maybe trade for a fresh one if you got coin. 6 miles. Might as well be 60 with the horse like this. The man must have read his expression because he smiled. I'm headed that way myself. You can ride double with me if you don't mind the company. Lead your horse behind. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't I? The man corked the bottle, stood, brushed dust from his knees. Desert's big enough without making it bigger by avoiding people. Cole considered. Every instinct told him to refuse, to stay alone, to not owe anyone anything. But his feet hurt, and his shoulder hurt, and the idea of walking 6 more miles in this heat made everything hurt worse. All right, he said, but I pay my own way at the station. Wouldn't expect otherwise. The man stuck out his hand. Name's William. William Frost. Cole shook it. Cole. Just Cole? Just Cole. William smiled like that was answer enough. He mounted up, pulled his foot from the stirrup so Cole could use it. Cole swung up behind him, feeling awkward and off balance. It had been years since he'd ridden double. They started north, Cole's horse trailing on a lead rope. The rhythm was different from riding alone. Less isolated, more aware of another person's breathing and movement. William didn't try to fill the silence with talk, and Cole appreciated that. After a mile, though, William spoke. You come from Red Hollow? Cole went still. What makes you think that? Saw the dust cloud from the direction 2 days ago, and you got the look of a man who just finished something he started a long time ago. William's voice was matter of fact. Plus there was talk. Travelers spread word fast out here. Said someone finally stood up to Barrett Crow. You knew Crow? Knew of him. We crossed paths once, years back. He tried to recruit me for a job. I declined. William paused. He took it poorly. You're still alive. Barely. He shot me, left me for dead in a gully outside Tombstone. I crawled out, healed up, and made it a point to be wherever he wasn't. William shifted in the saddle. When I heard someone had killed him, I'll admit I felt something. Relief, maybe. Or just the absence of a weight I'd been carrying. Cole understood that. The absence of weight. The space where something heavy used to be. He had it coming, Cole said. Most men do. Doesn't mean they get it. William glanced back over his shoulder. But he did, thanks to you. So if I'm helping you to a way station, consider it a thank you. One man who Crow wronged to another. They rode in silence after that. The sun tracked across the sky, throwing their shadow long and thin across the dirt. Cole's mind drifted, half in the present and half somewhere else. The desert had a way of doing that, pulling you out of time, making everything feel equally real and equally distant. He thought about James. Not the way he usually did, with anger and grief and the sharp edge of loss, but quieter. Remembering the kid his brother had been, the way he'd laugh at stupid jokes, the way he'd insist on doing things the hard way because the hard way was the right way. The stubborn streak they'd both inherited from a father neither of them had known well enough to miss. James would have liked William, Cole thought. Would have appreciated the quiet competence, the willingness to help without making a production of it. The thought came with a pang, but not the usual knife twist, more like an old bruise. Still there, still tender, but not actively bleeding. Maybe that was progress. Maybe it was just exhaustion. The way station appeared as the sun started its descent toward the horizon. It was a low building made of adobe and hope, with a barn that leaned slightly to one side, and a corral that held 3 horses and a mule. Smoke rose from the chimney, and there were flowers, actual flowers, growing in boxes under the windows. Someone lived here who hadn't given up yet. William dismounted and Cole followed. His legs were stiff from the ride, and he had to grab the saddle to keep from stumbling. "Sarah!" William called out. "You decent?" The door opened and a woman stepped out. She was somewhere in her 50s, hair more gray than brown, wearing an apron over clothes that had been mended more times than they'd been bought. But her eyes were sharp and her posture straight, and when she smiled, it reached those eyes. "William Frost, you old snake, thought you were dead." "Not yet, though I keep trying." William grinned. "Got a friend here needs to stable his horse. Animal's gone lame." Sarah's gaze shifted to Cole, evaluating him with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen every kind of man the frontier produced. She must have decided he passed muster because she nodded. "Barn's open. Water's in the trough. I got stew on if you're hungry." "Appreciate it," Cole said. "What's it cost?" "For the horse? 2 bits a night. For the stew, another 2 bits. You want a bed? That's $1. She paused. "You want whiskey to go with it? That's another 4 bits and worth every penny." "I'll take all of it." Cole led his horse to the barn while William and Sarah caught up on whatever history they shared. The interior was dim and smelled like hay and animal warmth. He found an empty stall, got the horse settled with water and feed, and examined the hoof again in better light. The swelling was already down, some thanks to William's liniment. A few days' rest and the animal would be fine, which meant Cole would be here a few days. The thought should have bothered him. He'd spent 10 years moving, never staying anywhere longer than necessary, always chasing the next lead or running from the last ghost. But standing in this barn, listening to the quiet sounds of horses shifting and wind moving through cracks in the walls, he felt something unexpected. Tired. Not the physical kind, though that was there too, but a deeper exhaustion. The kind that came from carrying the same burden for so long you'd forgotten what it felt like to set it down. He made his way back to the main building. Inside was a single room that served as kitchen, dining area, and common space. A stone fireplace took up one wall, a table with mismatched chairs occupied the center, and shelves lined with supplies and personal items filled the gaps. It was cramped and cluttered and somehow welcoming. Sarah ladled stew into wooden bowls, set them on the table along with bread that was only slightly stale. William was already eating, and he gestured for Cole to sit. The stew was good. Better than good. Venison and vegetables and something else Cole couldn't identify but didn't care because it was hot and filling and the first real meal he'd had in 3 days. "You cook like this often?" he asked Sarah. "Often as I can. Gets lonely out here. Cooking for people reminds me there's still folks in the world worth feeding." She sat down with her own bowl. "William says you come from Red Hollow." Cole glanced at William, who shrugged. "News travels," William said. "Might as well get ahead of it." "I was there," Cole admitted, "passing through." "Heard Barrett Crow's dead. That true?" "Yeah." Sarah was quiet for a moment, spoon halfway to her mouth. Then she set it down, stood, and walked to a shelf. She pulled down a bottle of whiskey, the good kind from the look of it, and 3 glasses. "Then we're drinking," she said, "because that man had a reckoning coming for a long time." She poured 3 generous measures, handed them out, raised her glass. "To the death of tyrants," she said, "and to whatever poor soul had the guts to make it happen." They drank. The whiskey burned going down, settled warm in Cole's stomach. He could feel Sarah and William watching him, questions unasked but present. "You want to know if I killed him?" Cole said. "Want to and need to are different things," Sarah replied. "But if you did, I'd like to shake your hand. Crow burned my husband's freight business to the ground 8 years ago when Richard refused to pay protection money. Richard tried to rebuild, worked himself to death doing it. Literally. Heart gave out while he was loading a wagon." She poured another round. "So yeah, I'm glad he's dead. And if you're the one who did it, I'm buying your drinks tonight." Cole looked at her. At William. At 2 people who'd been hurt by the same man in different ways and different times. The frontier was full of stories like that. Crow's victims scattered across the territories like shells on a beach. "I did it," Cole said. "For my brother. Crow killed him 10 years ago." Sarah reached across the table and shook his hand. Her grip was firm, calloused from work. "Good," she said simply. "Now eat your stew before it gets cold." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. The light coming through the windows turned golden, then orange, then faded to purple. Sarah lit lamps, and the room filled with warm light that pushed back the darkness outside. "You got a plan?" William asked eventually. "After your horse heals up?" Cole shook his head. Move on, I guess, find work, same as always. That's not a plan. That's just existing. What else is there? William and Sarah exchanged a look. Some kind of silent communication that came from knowing someone long enough to not need words. There might be something, Sarah said carefully. If you're interested. Cole waited. I'm getting too old to run this place alone, she continued, and it's too much work for one person anyway. I've been thinking about taking on a partner, someone who can help with the heavy work, deal with the rougher customers, keep things running. You don't know me. True, but William does. Well enough to bring you here. And you got honest eyes. Well, honest for a man who kills people. She smiled slightly. I'm not asking for a commitment, just saying if you need a place to rest for a while, figure out what's next, you could do it here. Work for your keep. See if it suits you. Cole looked around the room, at the shelves with their carefully organized supplies, at the table that had clearly hosted countless meals and conversations, at the fireplace with its banked coals still glowing, a place to stop. The idea was foreign, uncomfortable. He'd been moving for so long that standing still felt like betrayal, like giving up. I'll think about it, he said. That's all I'm asking. Sarah stood, started clearing bowls. For now, you're welcome to stay as long as the horse needs. After that, well, we'll see. William helped with the dishes while Cole sat and nursed his whiskey. The domestic normalcy of it, the sound of water and plates, the small talk about weather and supplies, felt surreal after Red Hollow, after Crow. When the work was done, Sarah showed Cole to a small room at the back of the building. It had a cot, a chair, and a window that looked out at the darkening desert. Simple. Clean. Privy's out back, she said. Water pumps by the barn. Breakfast is at dawn if you're up for it. Thank you. She paused in the doorway. William told me a bit more about you while you were tending the horse. Said you've been hunting crow for a long time. Said you finally got what you were looking for. Cole set his saddlebags on the chair. That's right. And did it help, getting what you wanted? The question sat heavy between them. No, Cole said quietly. It didn't. Sarah nodded like she'd expected that answer. Revenge never does, but that doesn't mean it wasn't necessary. Some things need doing even if they don't fix what's broken. She left him alone then, closing the door with a soft click. Cole sat on the cot, pulled off his boots, and lay back. The mattress was thin but better than sleeping on the ground. Through the window, he could see stars beginning to emerge, hard bright points in a sky that went on forever. He thought about Sarah's offer, a place to stay, work to do, the chance to stop running, at least for a while. Part of him wanted to refuse on principle. He wasn't the kind of man who settled down, who took roots, who pretended life could be anything other than the hard scrabble of survival. But another part, quieter, more tired, wondered what it would be like to wake up in the same place 2 days in a row, to have work that wasn't about violence or vengeance, to exist without the weight of the past pulling every step forward. He didn't have an answer. Sleep came in fragments, dreams of James, of Crow, of Red Hollow, burning. He woke before dawn with his hand on his gun and his heart racing, the echo of shots still ringing in his ears. The sky outside was just starting to lighten. Cole dressed, splashed water on his face from the basin Sarah had left, and walked outside. The desert morning was cold and clear. His breath misted in the air. Somewhere a coyote called, lonely and distant. He walked to the barn, checked on his horse. The animal was resting, weight off the bad leg. Cole ran his hand down the horse's neck, felt the warmth of living muscle and bone. We'll stay a few days, he said quietly, just until you're healed. Then we'll figure out what's next. The horse didn't answer, but something in Cole felt settled by saying it out loud, making a decision, even a temporary one. He heard footsteps and turned to find William approaching, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Cole. Thought you might be up, William said. They stood side by side, drinking coffee and watching the sun paint the horizon red and gold. Sarah tell you about her offer? William asked. Yeah. What do you think? Cole was quiet for a moment. I think I don't know how to stay in one place. Nobody does until they do. It's not complicated. You just stop leaving. And if I can't, then you can't. But running from the past and running toward the future look the same from the outside. Question is which one you're doing. Cole turned that over in his mind. You speaking from experience? Some. I spent years wandering after Crow shot me, telling myself I was looking for work, for opportunity, for the next thing. Truth was, I was just scared to stop moving because if I stopped, I'd have to deal with everything I was carrying. William sipped his coffee. Eventually, I got tired enough that I stopped anyway. Found out the world didn't end. Found out I could build something instead of just running through it. What'd you build? Little ranch about 50 miles west of here. Nothing fancy. Some cattle, some horses. A house that doesn't leak too bad. He smiled. A life, I guess. Not the one I planned, but the one I got. The sun was fully up now, burning off the last of the cold. The desert was coming alive with small sounds, birds, insects, the wind moving through scrub. I killed a man yesterday, Cole said. Day before. However long it's been. And I'm standing here drinking coffee like it's normal. It is normal. For you, for me, for anyone who's lived out here long enough. William finished his coffee, set the cup on a fence post. That's the thing nobody tells you about killing. It doesn't change you into something new. It just shows you what you already were. And what am I? A man who does what needs doing. Whether that's killing a tyrant or fixing a fence or feeding horses. The action doesn't define you. What you do after does. Cole didn't have an answer to that. He finished his coffee in silence, handed the cup back to William. I'm going to check the horse's leg again, he said. Good idea. I'll be inside if you need anything. William left, and Cole was alone with the animals and the growing heat. He spent the morning working, cleaning stalls, repairing a broken board in the corral fence, hauling water. Simple tasks that had nothing to do with guns or death or the weight of history. It felt strange, unfamiliar, but not bad. Sarah found him around midday, brought him bread and cheese and water. You don't have to work, she said. You're a guest. Rather work. Helps me think. About what? Whether I'm a man who can stay in one place. Sarah sat on a barrel, watched him finish the fence repair. My Richard used to say there's two kinds of people in the world. Those who build and those who burn. He said most people think they have to choose, but really you just have to decide which one you want to be more often. And which was he? Builder. Through and through. Even when Crow burned everything he'd made, Richard just started building again. Her voice caught. Killed him, in the end. But he died building. That mattered to him. Cole hammered in the last nail, tested the board. Solid. I've spent 10 years burning, he said. Don't know if I remember how to build. Then learn. You're not dead yet. Sarah stood, brushed dust from her skirt. Offer stands, Cole, no pressure. But if you want to try staying still for a while, find out what that's like, this is as good a place as any. She left him to his work. Cole spent the rest of the day in motion, fixing things, moving things, organizing things. The kind of work that let his mind wander while his hands stayed busy. He thought about Red Hollow, about Elias standing in the street with that photograph, about Henry with the key to the bank vault, about a town that might actually have a chance now that Crow was gone. He thought about James. The real James, not the angry ghost Cole had been carrying, the kid who'd wanted to see the ocean someday, who'd been good with animals and terrible at cards, who'd trusted his older brother to keep him safe and died anyway. He thought about what William had said, that killing shows you what you already are. Cole had always thought of himself as someone shaped by loss, defined by it, a man carved hollow by grief and filled with anger. But standing here in this barn, doing honest work under an honest sun, he wondered if maybe that was just a story he'd been telling himself, an excuse to keep moving, keep fighting, keep existing in the narrow space between what he'd lost and what he might lose next. Maybe there was another story, one where he was more than just his brother's vengeance, more than the sum of his scars and regrets. Maybe. The sun was setting when he finally stopped working. His hands were dirty, his shirt was soaked with sweat, and every muscle ached. But it was the good kind of ache, the kind that came from building instead of burning. He washed up at the pump, changed into clean clothes, and made his way to the main building. Inside, Sarah and William were setting the table for dinner. The smell of cooking meat filled the air. You look tired, Sarah observed. I am. Good tired or bad tired? Cole thought about it. Good, I think. They ate together, the three of them, passing food and making small talk about nothing important. What needed fixing around the station? Whether the rains would come this year? The best way to treat a lame horse? Normal conversation, the kind people had when they weren't running from anything or toward anything, just existing in the present moment. After dinner, William announced he'd be leaving in the morning. Had business to attend to back at his ranch. "You're welcome to come with," he told Cole. "Always need good hands. Pays not much, but the work's honest." "Appreciate it," Cole said. "But I think I'll stay here a bit until the horse is ready." William nodded. "Fair enough. You change your mind, you know where to find me." They shook hands, and Cole felt something pass between them. Understanding, maybe. Or just recognition. Two men who'd survived what they'd survived and found a way to keep going. That night, Cole slept deeper than he had in months. No dreams of Crow or James or Red Hollow, just darkness and rest and the sound of wind outside the window. When he woke, William was gone. Sarah was already up, making breakfast, and the station was settling into its daily rhythm. Cole checked the horse, improving, then asked Sarah what needed doing. "Roof's got a leak over the storage room," she said. "Been meaning to fix it, but I can't climb like I used to." "I'll take a look." He spent the day on the roof, replacing damaged tiles and sealing gaps. From up there he could see for miles, the desert stretching out in every direction, vast and empty and somehow peaceful. Below, Sarah went about her work. A traveler stopped for water and supplies, stayed for lunch, moved on. The mule in the corral brayed at nothing in particular. Life, small and steady and unconcerned with the weight of history. Cole realized he'd been up here for 3 hours and hadn't thought about Crow once. The realization hit him like a physical thing. He sat back, hammer in hand, and just breathed. For 10 years, Crow had occupied space in his head. Every decision, every choice, every road taken or not taken had been in service of eventually finding the man and making him pay. And now Crow was gone, and Cole was sitting on a roof fixing tiles, and the world kept turning like none of it had mattered. Maybe it hadn't, or maybe it had mattered in ways Cole couldn't see yet, ways that would only become clear with time and distance. He finished the roof as the sun dipped low, climbed down, tested his work from inside. The leak was fixed. Sarah inspected it, nodded approval. "Good work. You keep this up, I might have to make that offer permanent." "Might take you up on it," Cole heard himself say. The words surprised him, but once they were out, he didn't want to take them back. Sarah smiled. "Let's see how you feel in a week. Ask me again then." That night, Cole sat outside and watched the stars. His horse was healing, the work here was good. And for the first time since James died, Cole felt something other than the drive to keep moving. He felt the possibility of staying. It scared him more than facing Crow had. But he didn't run from it. He just sat there, breathing in the desert air, listening to the quiet sounds of night, and let the feeling exist without trying to fix it, or fight it, or understand it. Tomorrow he'd check the horse again. Maybe do more repairs. Maybe help Sarah with whatever needed helping with. And the day after that, he'd do it again. Small steps, small choices, building instead of burning. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't redemption. It wasn't closure or healing or any of the things people talked about when they talked about moving on. It was just him, sitting under stars, deciding that maybe tomorrow didn't have to look like yesterday. Maybe that was enough. The night stretched on, vast and patient. Cole stayed outside until the cold drove him in, then slept without dreams and woke to another day of possibility. The debt was paid. The ghost was laid to rest. What came next was up to him. A week became 2, and 2 became a month. And somewhere in that stretch of days, Cole stopped counting. The horse healed. He could have left after the first week, but he didn't. Sarah needed help with a broken water pump, and then there was a section of fence that needed replacing. And then a supply wagon came in with twice the usual load, and someone had to help unload it. Small reasons that added up to staying, or maybe they were just excuses. Cole didn't examine it too closely. The work was hard but uncomplicated. Physical labor that left him tired in a way that felt clean. No ghosts in it, no debts, just wood and nails and sweat and the satisfaction of seeing something broken become whole again. Sarah paid him in room and board plus a small wage she insisted on, even when he said it wasn't necessary. They fell into an easy routine: breakfast at dawn, work until the heat became unbearable, rest in the shade during midday, more work as the temperature dropped, dinner as the sun set. Simple. Predictable. Cole found he didn't mind predictable. On a Tuesday morning, or maybe it was Wednesday, the days blurred together out here, a rider came in fast, horse-lathered and blowing hard. Cole was fixing a hinge on the barn door when he heard the hoofbeats. He straightened, hand drifting to his hip before he remembered he'd stopped wearing his gun while working. It was locked in his room now, oiled and loaded, but out of sight. The rider was young, maybe 20, with wild eyes and dust caked on his face. He pulled up hard, nearly fell getting off the horse. "Need help," he gasped. "My sister, there was an accident. She's hurt bad." Sarah came out of the main building, took one look at the boy, and went into action. "Where?" 3 miles west. Wagon overturned. Wheel came off. She's trapped under it." The boy was shaking. "I tried to lift it, but I can't. Need another man, maybe 2. Cole was already moving. "Sarah, get medical supplies, bandages, whiskey, anything for pain." "On it." "You," Cole pointed at the boy. "Your horse is done. Take mine. I'll ride with you." They saddled up fast, Sarah pressing a bag into Cole's hands. The boy led the way at a pace that would kill the horses if they kept it up, but Cole didn't slow him down. 3 miles. If the girl was badly hurt, minutes mattered. They found the wagon on its side in a dry wash, one wheel 20 feet away where it had rolled after breaking free. A girl, couldn't be more than 16, was pinned beneath the wagon bed, conscious but pale. Too pale. Cole dismounted before his horse fully stopped. He assessed the situation in seconds. The wagon had her from the waist down. She wasn't screaming, which could mean shock or could mean something worse. "What's your name?" he asked her. "Emma." Her voice was thin. "It hurts." "I know. We're going to get you out." He looked at the boy. "What's your name?" "Thomas." "All right, Thomas, here's what we're going to do. We're going to lift on 3. When we do, you pull your sister out, fast as you can. Understand?" Thomas nodded, went to Emma's side. Cole positioned himself under the wagon's edge, found his grip. The wood was rough under his palms. He took a breath, set his feet. 1, 2, 3. He lifted. The wagon was heavier than it looked. Old wood, waterlogged from some past rain and loaded with supplies that hadn't spilled. Cole felt something in his back protest, that old injury from years ago making itself known, but he pushed through it. Muscles straining, vision going dark at the edges. Thomas grabbed his sister under the arms, pulled. She screamed as she moved, and that was good. Screaming meant feeling meant alive. "Clear!" Thomas shouted. Cole let the wagon drop, staggered back, bent over with his hands on his knees. His back was on fire. His arms were shaking, but Emma was free. He went to her, did a quick examination. Her legs were crushed, one worse than the other, bones broken for certain, maybe internal bleeding. Her breathing was shallow, and her pupils were different sizes. Not good. "We need to get her to a doctor," Cole said. "Nearest town with one?" "Carson's Bend," Thomas said. 10 miles east. 10 miles with a girl in this condition. She might not make it. "All right, we're going to make a stretcher. We'll rig it between the horses, move slow and steady." Cole pulled off his shirt, started tearing it into strips for bandages. Sarah packed laudanum. We'll give her some for the pain. They worked fast, used pieces of the broken wagon to make a frame, stretched blankets across it, secured it with rope. It wasn't pretty, but it would hold. Cole gave Emma a dose of laudanum that was probably too much, but would at least knock her out for the journey. Loading her onto the stretcher made her scream again, a sound that cut through the air like glass. Then the laudanum hit and she went quiet, eyes rolling back. Thomas looked terrified. She's breathing. Let's move." The journey back to the way station took an hour. Cole led the horses on foot, keeping the pace as smooth as possible. Every bump made him wince, imagining what it was doing to Emma's broken body. Thomas walked beside the stretcher, holding his sister's hand, whispering to her even though she couldn't hear. Sarah had a wagon ready when they arrived, already hitched to her fastest horse. She'd also prepared more supplies, real bandages, clean water, actual medical equipment. "I'm taking them to Carson's Bend," she announced. "You stay here, mind the station. I should go with you. You should rest. Your back's about to give out. I can see it in the way you're standing. Besides, someone needs to be here in case more travelers come through. She climbed into the driver's seat. I'll be back tomorrow. Maybe the day after. She was right. His back felt like someone had driven nails through it, but he didn't like the idea of her making that trip alone. Be careful, was all he said. Sarah smiled. Always am. She snapped the reins and the wagon rolled out, Thomas riding alongside on Cole's horse. Cole watched until they disappeared into the heat shimmer, then made his way inside. His back finally gave out halfway across the room. He caught himself on the table, lowered himself into a chair with a grunt that sounded like it came from someone else. He sat there for a long time, breathing through the pain, waiting for it to settle into something manageable. By evening, it had downgraded from agony to just constant ache. Cole managed to feed the animals, check the water situation, and lock up before collapsing onto his cot. Sleep came hard and shallow, his back keeping him from finding any comfortable position. He woke before dawn to the sound of horses. Multiple riders, coming in fast. Cole grabbed his gun, moved to the window. 5 men, armed, spreading out around the station in a pattern that was too organized to be coincidence. They were positioning themselves, preparing for something. He recognized the one in front, Marcus Webb, one of Crow's men. Cole had seen him in Red Hollow, standing with the others when Crow had issued his challenge. Webb had been smart enough not to draw when the shooting started, smart enough to leave town after Crow fell, apparently not smart enough to let it go. Cole checked his gun, loaded, and moved to the door. He could try to barricade himself in, but that would just delay the inevitable. These men hadn't ridden through the night to have a conversation. He opened the door, stepped out into the pre-dawn darkness. Webb was still mounted, hands visible and empty, but the 4 men with him had their hands near their guns. "Cole Harlan," Webb called out. "Been looking for you." "Found me." "That I did." Webb smiled, but there was nothing friendly in it. "See, after you killed Mr. Crow, things got complicated. His organization, all the territory he controlled, all fell apart. Men scattered, money disappeared, everything he built just gone." "Sounds like a problem." "It is. Was. Some of us, we've been trying to rebuild, bring things back together, but we need capital, backing, the kind of thing Crow used to provide." Webb's horse shifted, and he patted its neck absently. "Then we heard about you, about the man who killed Barrett Crow. Figured you might be worth something." "To who?" "People back east, investors who had dealings with Crow. They want to know what happened, want to see the man who did it." Webb's smile widened. "Dead or alive, they'll pay, but alive is worth more." Cole felt his options narrowing. 5 to 1, good positions. Dawn light making it hard to see clearly, his back still screaming from yesterday. "You came a long way for nothing," Cole said. "Don't think so. We know you're here alone. The woman left yesterday. Won't be back for a day at least. Nobody to help you. Nobody to hear the shots." "You sure about that?" Webb frowned. "What?" "The shot came from the roof of the barn. One of Webb's men fell from his horse, hit the ground hard, and didn't move. Cole dove back inside as gunfire erupted. He hit the floor, rolled, came up behind the table and overturned it for cover. Bullets punched through the door, through the windows, tearing up the room around him. He returned fire, aiming for the muzzle flashes. Heard someone yell, couldn't tell if he'd hit anyone. Another shot from the roof dropped a second rider. The remaining men scattered, seeking cover. The shooting paused, both sides reassessing. Cole used the moment to check his ammunition, half a cylinder left. He had more cartridges in his room, but no way to get to them without exposing himself. "Who's on the roof?" Webb shouted. "Does it matter?" A familiar voice called back. "William." Cole felt something loosen in his chest. William had come back. Must have arrived late last night or early this morning. Must have seen Webb's men positioning themselves and climbed up to get the advantage. "It's 2 against 3 now," William continued. "Math's not looking good for you boys." "We'll burn you out," Webb threatened. "You could try, but Cole here shot your fire starter already. That was Deeks who fell first, wasn't it? Man always carried matches and oil. Shame about that." Silence. Cole could hear Webb thinking, weighing his options. 3 men left. 2 defenders in good positions. The element of surprise gone. "This doesn't end here," Webb finally said. "We'll be back. With more men. Better prepared. Looking forward to it, William replied cheerfully. The sound of horses retreating, fast but not panicked. A strategic withdrawal, not a rout. Cole stayed behind the overturned table until he was sure they were gone. Then he made his way outside, gun still ready. The two dead men lay in the dirt. Their horses had bolted. William climbed down from the roof, rifle in hand. He looked older than Cole remembered, more worn, but his eyes were sharp and his hands were steady. "Thought you went home," Cole said. "Did. Got halfway there and realized I forgot my good knife. Came back for it." William looked at the bodies. "Lucky timing, I guess." "Yeah, lucky." They dragged the bodies to the edge of the property, covered them with rocks. It wasn't a proper burial, but it was better than leaving them for scavengers. The work made Cole's back scream, but he pushed through it. When they finished, William sat on a rock and pulled out a canteen. "Webb wasn't lying," he said. "There's people back east who bankrolled Crow, men with money and connections who saw him as an investment. They won't be happy about losing that investment. So they'll send more." Eventually, Webb and his boys were just the first wave, testing the waters. Next time will be more serious. Cole felt the old familiar weight settling back onto his shoulders. The thing he'd thought was over, the past reaching forward with clawed hands. "I should leave," he said, "before Sarah gets back. Don't want to bring trouble down on her." William took a long drink, wiped his mouth. "Where would you go?" "Somewhere else. Anywhere else." "And when they find you there?" "Because they will. Men like that don't give up easy. They'll chase you across the whole damn territory if they think there's money in it. Then I'll deal with it somewhere that isn't here." "Or," William said slowly, "you could stay. Make a stand. Show them that chasing you is more expensive than it's worth." Cole looked at him. "You offering to help with that?" "I'm saying running doesn't solve anything. I should know. I tried it for years after Crow shot me. Kept moving, kept hiding, kept thinking the next town would be far enough away. But it never was. The past has long legs, Cole. Sometimes you have to turn around and face it." The sun was fully up now, burning off the last of the morning cool. In the corral, the horses were getting restless, wanting their feed. "I'm tired," Cole admitted. "Tired of running, tired of fighting, tired of the whole thing." "So stop." "Just like that?" "Just like that." William stood, stretched. "You got a good thing here. Sarah needs the help, the station needs defending, and you need a reason to stay in one place long enough to figure out who you are when you're not chasing ghosts." Cole wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the reasons why staying was stupid and dangerous and unfair to Sarah. But the words wouldn't come, because William was right. He was tired. And more than that, he didn't want to leave, didn't want to give up this small pocket of normal he'd found. The work, the routine, the possibility that maybe he could be something other than a man defined by violence and loss. "Webb will come back," Cole said. "Probably. With more men. Most likely. Could get ugly. Usually does." William smiled. "But we'll deal with it, together. That's what people do when they stop running." They went inside and started cleaning up the damage from the gunfight. Broken windows, splintered furniture, bullet holes in the walls. It took most of the day, working in silence, putting things back together. Sarah returned the next afternoon, tired but relieved. Emma would live, though she'd never walk quite right again. Thomas was staying in Carson's Bend with relatives who'd take care of them both. She noticed the fresh boards in the wall, the new window glass, the way Cole and William moved around each other with the easy coordination of men who'd fought together. "Something happened while I was gone?" she asked. "Few visitors," Cole said. "Nothing we couldn't handle." Sarah looked at William, who shrugged. "He's staying," William said. We both agreed. "That's so." Sarah turned to Cole. "You making that offer official now?" Cole found himself nodding before he'd fully decided to. "If it still stands." "It stands." Sarah smiled and it reached her eyes. "Welcome home, Cole." The word hit him strange. Home. He'd never had one of those. Not really. Places he'd lived, sure. Towns he'd passed through, rooms he'd rented, but never anywhere that felt like it belonged to him or he belonged to it. This place wasn't much. A way station in the middle of nowhere, slowly losing its battle with the desert. But it had good bones, good people. Maybe that was enough. Over the following weeks, they fortified the station. William knew carpentry, and together they reinforced the walls, built proper shutters that could stop bullets, created firing positions that covered all approaches. They didn't talk about Webb or the men who might come. They just worked, preparing without dwelling on it. Sarah watched it all with the patient understanding of someone who'd seen enough trouble to know it came whether you invited it or not. She kept the station running, kept travelers fed and housed, kept the normal business of life going even as the men turned her home into something that could withstand a siege. Cole fell into the rhythm of it. Morning chores, fortification work, evening maintenance. The physical labor kept his hands busy and his mind quiet. He slept better than he had in years. No dreams of Crow or James, just deep, exhausted sleep that left him ready for the next day's work. A month passed. Then another. No sign of Webb or his employers. Cole started to wonder if maybe they'd given up, if maybe the cost of revenge had outweighed the benefit. Then one evening, a traveler came through with news from the territorial capital. The marshal's office had put out wanted posters for a man matching Cole's description, charges of murder in Red Hollow. "They're saying you killed 5 men in cold blood," the traveler said over dinner, "including a prominent businessman named Barrett Crow. Bounty's $1,000. Cole and Sarah exchanged looks. "That true?" the traveler asked. "You kill those men?" "I killed them," Cole said. "But it wasn't cold blood. Crow was a murderer and a thief. His men drew first." "That's not how they're telling it back east." The traveler pushed beans around his plate. "Story they're spreading is you came to Red Hollow looking for trouble, killed Crow's men unprovoked, shot Crow down in the street when he tried to talk you into leaving peaceful." William laughed, sharp and bitter. "That's creative. Crow never tried to talk anyone into anything peaceful in his life." "Maybe so, but that's the official story now. And $1,000 is a lot of money. A lot of men will come looking." After the traveler left, the 3 of them sat around the table. "You could turn yourself in," Sarah said. "Get a trial. Tell your side." "Trial's rigged before it starts if they're putting out wanted posters based on lies," William said. "Whoever's backing this has money and influence. Cole wouldn't make it to a courtroom." "So what then? He hides here forever?" "He doesn't hide. He just lives. And when trouble comes, because it will, we deal with it." Sarah looked at Cole. "That what you want?" Cole thought about it. Really thought. He could run, change his name, try to disappear into the territories. But William was right. Running didn't solve anything. It just delayed the inevitable. Or he could stay. Plant his feet. Make this place worth defending. "I want to stay," he said. "But I won't put you in danger. Either of you. If the law comes, if bounty hunters come, I'll deal with it. You stay clear." "Like hell," William said. "He's right," Sarah added. "You're part of this place now. We don't abandon our own when things get hard." Cole felt something tighten in his chest. Not the old familiar weight of debt and guilt. Something else. Something that might have been gratitude. "All right," he said quietly. "We do it together." They spent the rest of the evening planning. Where to position themselves if attackers came, how to reinforce the weak points, where to keep extra ammunition, the practical details of preparing to defend your home against people who wanted you dead. It should have felt grim. Instead, it felt purposeful, like building something worth protecting. That night, Cole lay in his cot and stared at the ceiling. The wanted poster changed things, made him a target not just for revenge, but for profit. Every drifter and desperate man would be looking at him and seeing $1,000. But he'd meant what he said. He was staying, because for the first time since James died, he had something worth staying for. Not redemption, not forgiveness, not closure or healing or any of those big abstract concepts. Just a place, and people who chose to stand with him even when they didn't have to. That was worth fighting for. The next morning started like any other. Chores, work, the familiar rhythm of maintenance and survival. But underneath it, Cole felt different. Lighter, maybe. Or just more present. He was fixing a section of fence when he heard Sarah call his name. He looked up to see her standing on the porch, shading her eyes, looking east. "Riders coming," she said. Cole set down his tools, wiped his hands. "How many?" "Can't tell yet. More than 2. William emerged from the barn, rifle already in hand. They'd drilled for this, knew their positions, knew what to do. But as the riders got closer, Cole realized they weren't coming with hostile intent. They were flying a white flag. "Parley," William said. "Interesting." The riders stopped 100 yards out. 5 of them. Well-armed but not aggressive. The one in front, older, wearing a marshal's badge, raised his hands to show they were empty. "Cole Harlan," he called. "Need to talk." Cole walked out to meet them, staying out of easy shooting range. William covered him from the barn. Sarah watched from the porch. "I'm Harlan," the marshal nodded. "Name's Garrett, federal marshal out of the territorial office. Got some questions about what happened in Red Hollow." "You going to arrest me?" "That depends on your answers." Garrett shifted in his saddle. "I've been doing some investigating, talked to the people still living in Red Hollow, heard some interesting stories about Barrett Crow, about how he really ran that town. And I'm starting to think the official story I got fed was less than accurate." Garrett pulled out the wanted poster, looked at it, then at Cole. "You kill those men?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because they drew on me first, and because Crow killed my brother 10 years ago." Garrett was quiet for a moment. "I found records. From the payroll robbery. Your brother was one of the guards killed. Crow was suspected, but never charged. Hard to charge a man when he owns the witnesses." "True enough." Garrett folded the poster, put it away. "Here's my problem, Harlan. I got men back east telling me to bring you in. Rich men with connections. But I also got a whole town telling me you freed them from a tyrant. So which story is true?" "Both, probably." That got a small smile. "Fair answer." Garrett leaned forward in his saddle. "I can't make this wanted poster disappear. Not officially. But I can take my time investigating, do this thing proper, talk to more witnesses, build a real case instead of just trusting what I'm told." "How long would that take?" "Months. Maybe a year. Long enough for the men who want you dead to lose interest or find another target." Garrett straightened. "But I need your word you'll stay put. No running, no more killing unless it's self-defense. Can you do that?" Cole thought about it. Thought about the alternative, running forever, always looking over his shoulder, compared to staying here, building this place, living instead of just surviving. "I can do that." "Good." Garrett gathered his reins. "I'll be in touch. Someone comes after you before I close this investigation. You defend yourself and send me word. I'll back your claim." "Why are you helping me?" Garrett looked out at the desert, then back at Cole. "Because I've seen enough crooked men in positions of power. And I've seen what happens to the good people who try to stand against them. If there's a chance to get the truth out there, to show that justice can work right instead of just serving whoever pays the most, well, that's worth the effort." He turned his horse, and the other riders followed. They rode east, back toward whatever town they'd come from, leaving Cole standing in the dust. William joined him, rifle lowered. "Think he meant it?" William asked. "Don't know, but it's the best offer I'm likely to get." They walked back to the station together. Sarah had coffee waiting. "So?" she asked. "So we wait," Cole said. "Do the work, live our lives. Hope the marshal's as good as his word. And if he's not, then we deal with it when it comes." Sarah poured the coffee, and they sat together in the shade, watching the desert shimmer in the heat. Cole realized something. For weeks now he'd been waiting for the past to catch up, waiting for Webb to return, waiting for bounty hunters, waiting for the consequences of killing Crow to land on him like a falling axe. But sitting here, drinking coffee with people who'd chosen to stand by him, he felt something shift. Maybe the past didn't have to define the future. Maybe consequences weren't just punishment. Maybe sometimes they were opportunities to do better, be better, build instead of burn. The work on the station continued. Days turned into weeks. No sign of Webb, no bounty hunters. Just the steady flow of travelers, the constant maintenance, the slow transformation of the way station into something stronger. Cole found himself thinking less about Crow, less about James even, though the memory was still there. Just quieter now, less consuming. He was learning what it meant to stay in one place, to know the same people day after day, to watch his work compound. Fixing something today made tomorrow's work easier. Building something this week meant next week's storms wouldn't hit as hard. It was the opposite of running, the opposite of chasing ghosts. It was living. And for the first time in 10 years, Cole Harlan was learning how. 6 months passed before Webb came back. Cole was repairing the corral gate when he saw the dust cloud. Multiple riders coming from the south this time. He counted 8, maybe 9. Too many for a casual visit. He didn't run to get his gun, just set down his tools, wiped his hands on his pants, and walked calmly to the barn where William was shoeing a horse. "Company," Cole said quietly. William looked up, saw the dust, and nodded. He finished the nail he was hammering, set down the hoof gently, and reached for his rifle. They'd prepared for this. Drilled it. The waiting was finally over. Sarah came out of the main building, assessed the situation with one glance, and disappeared back inside. She'd be loading the spare rifles, positioning them at windows. They'd all learned their roles in the months of preparation. The riders came in slow this time, cautious. They'd learned from their first attempt. Webb was still leading them, but the men with him were different, harder, professional. The kind who killed for money and slept fine afterward. They stopped at a distance that made conversation possible but shooting difficult. Webb dismounted, hands visible, but his men stayed on their horses with weapons ready. "Harlan," Webb called. "Figured you'd still be here. Where else would I go?" Smart men would have run, put distance between themselves and what's coming. Webb smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "But I guess you're not smart, just stubborn." Cole walked out to meet him, stopping 20 feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to react. William moved to a position that gave him clean sight lines. Sarah was somewhere inside, watching through a rifle scope. "You came back with more men," Cole observed. "Didn't learn the lesson the first time?" "I learned plenty. Learned you're not alone. Learned you've fortified this place. Learned you're planning to make a stand." Webb pulled out a cigar, lit it slowly. "Problem is, none of that matters. I got 9 men now. You got 2, maybe 3. Math's simple. Math was simple last time, too. You left with half your men dead. Different men, better men." Webb took a drag on the cigar. "But I'm not here to fight today. I'm here to make you an offer." "Not interested. You haven't heard it yet." Webb exhaled smoke. "The people I work for, they're willing to forgive what happened in Red Hollow. Crow's dead, that's done. But they want assurance it won't happen again, that their other investments won't be threatened by some gunslinger with a grudge." "What kind of assurance?" "Your word that you'll stay here. Never leave this place. Never interfere with their business again. Do that, and the wanted poster disappears. The bounty goes away. You get to live out your days in peace." Cole considered it. It sounded reasonable on the surface, but reasonable offers from unreasonable men usually had teeth hidden in them. "And if I say no, then we come back with 20 men. 30 if we have to. We burn this place to the ground and everyone in it. You, your friends, anyone who helped you." Webb's voice went flat. "I don't want that. It's expensive and messy, but I'll do it if you force my hand. So I can be a prisoner here, or I can die here. Those are my choices." "Everyone's a prisoner of something, Harlan. At least this way you get to choose your cell." Behind Webb, one of his men shifted in the saddle. His hand drifted toward his gun. Not aggressive, just ready. They all were. Cole looked back at the way station, at the work he'd put into it, the life he'd started building. Sarah and William putting themselves at risk just by standing with him. "I need time to think," Cole said. "You got until tomorrow, noon. We'll be camped 5 miles south." Webb mounted his horse. "Make the smart choice, Harlan. Live to see another sunrise." They rode off, and Cole stood in the dust they left behind. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. The offer was a trap. Even if they meant it now, eventually someone would decide he was too much of a risk. One day he'd wake up to bullets through the window, or poison in his water, or a mysterious fire. Men like Webb's employers didn't forgive. They just waited for convenient moments to settle scores. William came up beside him. "What do you think?" "I think they're lying." "Me too." William spat in the dirt. "Question is, what do we do about it?" Sarah joined them, rifle still in hand. "We could leave, all of us. Pack up, head somewhere they won't find us." "They'll find us," Cole said. "Maybe not today, maybe not next month, but eventually." "So we fight?" Cole looked at them both. Sarah, who'd offered him a place when he had nowhere to go. William, who'd come back to help defend a man he barely knew. Good people who'd gotten tangled in his mess through no fault of their own. No, he said quietly. I fight. You two leave, tonight. Head to William's ranch. Stay there until this is over. That's not happening, William said immediately. He's right, Sarah added. We're in this together. You don't get to play hero just because you feel guilty. I'm not playing hero. I'm being practical. Webb's got 9 men. Tomorrow, he might have 20. You two staying doesn't change the math, just increases the body count. Or it gives us better odds, William countered. 3 guns are better than 1. They stood in a triangle, 3 stubborn people refusing to back down. Cole felt frustration rising. Why couldn't they see this was the smart play? The only play that didn't end with them dead? But he knew why. Because he wouldn't leave either if positions were reversed. Because standing together meant something. Because some things were worth more than survival. There might be another way, Sarah said slowly. They both looked at her. Marshal Garrett said to send word if trouble came. Said he'd back your claim of self-defense. She gestured south, where Webb's men had gone. Well, trouble's here, and it's making threats. That's witness able, Cole considered. Garrett's 3 days' ride from here. Could be longer, depending where he is. We send for him now. Webb comes back tomorrow at noon. We're on our own. Unless we stall, William said. Tell Webb you need more time to think. Another few days. Keep him talking until Garrett arrives. Webb's not stupid. He'll see through that. Maybe. But what's he going to do? Attack when you haven't refused yet? That makes him the aggressor. Harder to spin that story back east. It was thin, risky, but it was something. All right, Cole said. Sarah, you ride to find Garrett. William and I will hold here, try to buy time. I should be the one to go, William argued. I know the territory better. And I'm the better shot, Sarah countered. You two will need every gun if things go bad. She was right. Cole didn't like it, but she was right. They spent the evening preparing. Sarah packed light, took the fastest horse, and left under cover of darkness. She'd ride through the night, push hard, and hope to find Garrett before Webb's deadline. Cole and William fortified their positions. Extra ammunition at every window, water stored inside in case of siege. Supplies moved from the barn to the main building. They worked without talking much, both lost in their own thoughts. As the sun set, they sat on the porch and watched the stars emerge. The desert night was cold and clear. Beautiful, if you ignored the violence waiting on the horizon. You ever think about what comes after? William asked. After what? After all this? After Webb? After whatever happens tomorrow or the next day? You ever think about what your life looks like when you're not fighting for it? Cole was quiet for a long moment. Used to think I'd die young. Most men like me do. Never planned for growing old. And now? Now I don't know. Haven't lived enough normal life to imagine it. He looked at William. What about you? You've got your ranch. You could be there right now, safe. Why are you here? William smiled. Because I spent 5 years running from Crow's shadow. 5 years looking over my shoulder. When you killed him, you freed me from that. Freed a lot of people. He paused. I figure I owe you. But more than that, I like you. You're a good man trying to be better. That's worth standing with. The words settled into Cole like stones in a river, good and heavy and permanent. I'm not that good, Cole said. Nobody is. That's not the point. The point is you're trying. That's rarer than you think. They sat in silence until the cold drove them inside. Took shifts watching through the night. Nothing moved in the darkness except wind and the occasional coyote. Morning came gray and cold. Cole made coffee, forced himself to eat bread he couldn't taste. His hands were steady. His mind was clear. Whatever happened today, he was ready. At noon, Webb's riders appeared on the southern horizon. But they weren't alone. Cole counted the dust clouds, felt his stomach drop. Webb had brought reinforcements, not 9 men now, close to 20. They'd called his bluff and raised. That's a problem, William said mildly. Yeah. They took their positions. Cole at the front window, William covering the side. Both of them knowing the math was impossible now. 20 men could surround the station, pour fire in from all directions. The fortifications would help, but not enough. Webb rode forward alone this time, confident. He knew he'd won. Time's up, Harlan, he called. What's your answer? Cole stepped out onto the porch, made himself visible. made himself a target. If they were going to do this, he'd at least look them in the eye. "My answer is no," he said clearly. "I'm not living in a cage, not for you, not for your employers, not for anyone." Webb sighed. "Shame. Could have been easy." He turned in his saddle, raised his hand to signal the attack. That's when the second dust cloud appeared. From the east, moving fast. Cole squinted, trying to make out details, and felt something like hope flicker in his chest. Marshal Garrett rode at the head of a column of riders. Not 5 men like before. Closer to 15, all wearing badges, all armed. Webb saw them too. His hand dropped. His men shifted nervously. Garrett pulled up between the two groups, his horse blowing hard from the fast ride. He looked at Webb, then at Cole, then back to Webb. "What's going on here?" Garrett demanded. "Private business," Webb said. "Nothing to do with federal marshals." "Private business that involves 20 armed men surrounding a way station?" Garrett's voice was hard. "Looks like an attempted murder to me. Maybe worse." "We're just talking." "With rifles aimed at the building? Try again." Webb's jaw tightened. He was calculating, trying to figure out if he could still salvage this. 20 men against 15 lawmen. The numbers favored him, but killing marshals brought heat no amount of money could protect you from. "Harlan's wanted for murder," Webb tried. "We were attempting to collect the bounty." "Funny thing about that." Garrett pulled out papers from his saddlebag. "Investigations closed. Talked to witnesses. Reviewed evidence. Turns out Cole Harlan acted in self-defense against a known criminal and his associates. All charges dropped. Wanted poster rescinded." The words hung in the air like smoke. "That's impossible," Webb said. "The people who filed those charges lied, used false testimony, tried to manipulate federal law enforcement for personal gain." Garrett's voice went cold. "I don't take kindly to being used. Now you and your men are going to turn around and ride out. And if I ever see you in this territory again, I'll arrest you for attempted murder, conspiracy, and whatever other charges I can make stick." Webb looked at his men, at the marshals, at Cole standing on the porch with William beside him. The math had changed. "This isn't over," Webb said. "Yeah, it is." Garrett moved his horse closer. "Your employers can complain to whoever they want, file whatever legal challenges they think will work. But out here, in my territory, the law says Cole Harlan is innocent. You come after him again, you're the criminals. Understand?" For a long moment, Webb just stared. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Let's go," he told his men. They rode south, back the way they'd come. Cole watched until they were gone, until the dust settled, until the desert was empty again, except for Garrett's marshals. Garrett dismounted, walked up to the porch. He looked tired, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 6 months ago. "Sarah found me 2 days north," he said. "We rode hard to get here." "She all right?" "Fine. Stubborn woman wouldn't let us rest more than a few hours. Said you'd need help." Garrett smiled slightly. "She was right." "How'd you close the investigation so fast?" "Wasn't fast. Been working it for months, talking to people, building the case. The charges against you were never legitimate. Just took time to prove it." He pulled out a paper, handed it to Cole. "Official pardon. Signed by the territorial governor. You're a free man." Cole took the paper. "Read it." The words didn't quite feel real. Free. What about Webb's employers, the men back east? They're facing their own problems now. Turns out when you shine light on illegal activities, people get nervous. I've sent reports to federal authorities. They're looking into corruption, money laundering, all kinds of things. Garrett shrugged. They might be too busy defending themselves to worry about one gunslinger in the desert. William came out, shook Garrett's hand. "You have perfect timing." "Sarah said noon. We aimed for 11:30. Garrett looked around at the station, at the fortifications, at the evidence of preparation. "You folks were ready for a fight." "Rather not fight," Cole said, "but we would have." "I believe it," Garrett gestured to his men. "We'll camp here tonight if that's all right. Rest the horses. Head out in the morning. You're welcome to stay as long as you need." Sarah arrived 3 hours later, riding a horse that looked ready to collapse. She practically fell off when she dismounted, and William caught her. "Did we make it?" she asked. "Did they—" "We made it," Cole said. "Thanks to you." She smiled, exhausted but relieved. "Good. Now someone else can make dinner because I'm sleeping for a week." That night, The way station was full of people and noise and life. Garrett's marshals swapped stories with William. Sarah slept in a chair, snoring softly. Cole found himself sitting outside again, watching the stars, trying to process everything. Garrett joined him after a while, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," the marshal said. They drank in silence for a bit. Then Garrett spoke. "You know, I've been doing this job 20 years, seen a lot of men in your position, caught between who they were and who they're trying to be. Most of them don't make it. They get pulled back into the violence, or they run so far they forget how to live." He paused. "But some of them figure it out, find a place, find people, build something worth protecting." "Which kind am I?" "The kind that's still figuring it out. But you've got good people around you. That helps." Garrett set down his cup. "The pardon's real. The investigation's closed. But there's always going to be someone with a grudge or a reason. You can't control that. All you can do is decide what kind of man you're going to be when they come." "And what kind should I be?" "That's not for me to say, but I'll tell you this. Revenge didn't make you happy. It just made you tired. Maybe it's time to try something else." Garrett went back inside, left Cole alone with his thoughts. The old man was right. Killing Crow hadn't fixed anything, hadn't brought James back, hadn't filled the empty spaces. It had just been the end of one road and the beginning of another. This road, the one with Sarah and William and the way station and the work, this was different, harder in some ways. It required showing up every day, trying, failing, trying again. But it was real. And it was his. The next morning, Garrett and his marshals left. They took the pardon papers, the official documents, all the legal weight of civilization with them. Left behind was just the desert and the station and 3 people trying to make a life. Cole walked the perimeter after they left, checking for damage from the confrontation that never happened. Found Webb's cigar butt in the dirt, grounded under his heel. Some part of him had expected to feel triumphant, vindicated. He'd survived. The law had sided with him. Webb was gone, but he just felt quiet. Sarah found him an hour later, carrying a list of repairs and improvements. "Thought we could use the next few weeks to expand," she said. "Maybe add another room, build a proper stable. What do you think?" "I think that sounds good." "You sure you're staying? Really staying? Because if you are, we should plan accordingly." Cole looked at her. At this woman who'd taken a chance on a stranger, who'd ridden through the night to save his life, who was already planning the future like the past didn't matter. "I'm staying," he said, and meant it. The weeks that followed were the hardest work Cole had ever done, not because of the physical labor, though there was plenty of that, but because it required something he'd never given anything before: commitment. He had to believe that tomorrow would come, that the work he did today would matter next month, that building something meant trusting it wouldn't be torn down. It went against every instinct he'd developed in 10 years of running and fighting, but he did it anyway. Dug foundations, raised walls, planted things that wouldn't grow for months, made plans that extended into next year. William came and went, helping with the heavy work, then returning to his ranch. But he was around enough that Cole started to understand friendship, the kind where you didn't have to explain yourself, where silence was comfortable and help was offered without strings. Travelers continued to come through. Some stayed for a meal, some for a night. A few stayed longer, helping with work in exchange for food and shelter. One was a young man named Daniel, maybe 19, running from something he wouldn't talk about. Cole saw himself in those haunted eyes. The way Daniel kept his gear packed, the way he watched the horizon. "You can stay," Cole told him one evening. "Long as you need. No questions asked." "Why would you do that?" "Because someone did it for me once." Daniel stayed for 2 months, helped build the new stable, learned how to fix things instead of running from them. When he finally left, he left different, steadier. Cole understood that you couldn't save everyone, but maybe you could show them that staying still didn't mean giving up, that putting down roots didn't make you weak. 6 months after Webb's failed attack, a letter arrived. From Elias. Red Hollow was recovering. The money from Crow's vault had been used to repair buildings, help families, bring in new businesses. It was still small, still struggling, but it was alive in a way it hadn't been in years. Elias wrote about the changes, about Henry running for mayor, about people coming back, drawn by the news that the town was free. He also wrote about the photograph Cole had given him, how he kept it in the store, how it reminded him every day to do better, make different choices. At the end he wrote, "I don't expect forgiveness, don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know that James's death meant something, because it led you here, led you to end Crow, led you to save a town. Maybe that doesn't balance the scales, but it's something." Cole read the letter 3 times, then put it in a drawer. He didn't need to forgive Elias, didn't need to hold on to the anger either. It just was part of the past, part of how he'd gotten here. James would have been 33 now, older than he ever got to be. Cole tried to imagine it, his brother with gray in his hair, laugh lines around his eyes, the weight of years instead of the frozen youth of memory. He couldn't quite picture it, but he could honor it, by living, by building, by being the kind of man James had believed he was, even when Cole hadn't believed it himself. A year after arriving at the way station, Cole woke up and realized he'd stopped counting days since Red Hollow, stopped measuring time by the distance from Crow's death. He was just living. The station was thriving. They'd added 2 new rooms, expanded the stable, even started a small garden that somehow grew despite the desert. Sarah talked about adding a second building, maybe hiring another hand, turning this into something permanent. William had moved his operation closer, sold his ranch up north, and bought land near the station. Said it was more convenient. Cole suspected he just liked the company. They sat together one evening, the 3 of them, watching the sun set over the desert they'd all chosen to call home. "You ever regret it?" Sarah asked. "Staying here instead of moving on?" Cole thought about it, really thought. "No," he said. "This is the first place that ever felt like it could be mine. First time I felt like I belonged somewhere. Even with everything that happened? Webb, the wanted poster, all of it? Especially because of that. Because you 2 stood with me when you didn't have to, because we built this together." He gestured at the station. "It's not perfect, but it's real." William raised his cup of coffee. To imperfect, real things. They drank to that. The frontier was still hard, still unforgiving. People still died young and violently. Towns still failed. The desert still swallowed dreams. But here, in this small pocket of civilization carved out of nothing, 3 people had found something worth protecting. Not by running, not by fighting, but by simply refusing to leave when things got hard. By planting roots and tending them. By building instead of burning. That night, Cole lay in his bed in his room, in his home, and felt something he hadn't felt since he was young enough to still believe in things. Peace. Not the absence of conflict. The world would always have conflict. But peace with himself. With his choices. With the path that had led him here. James was still dead. Crow was still dead. 10 years were still gone, spent in pursuit of something that hadn't fixed anything when he got it. But those 10 years had led here, to this place, these people, this life. Maybe that was the point. Maybe closure wasn't about settling scores or balancing books. Maybe it was just about finding a reason to stop running, a place to stand, people to stand with. The frontier taught you that survival was victory, that making it to tomorrow was success. But Cole was learning something different now, that survival wasn't enough, that you had to have something worth surviving for. And he did. In the morning, he'd wake up and fix the fence that needed fixing, help Sarah with the books, talk with William about expanding the stable, do the small, unglamorous work of maintaining something real. And the day after that, he'd do it again. Not because he had to, not because he was running from something or chasing something, but because he'd finally found something worth staying for. The debt was paid. The ghosts were laid to rest. The past was the past. What came next was just life. Messy and complicated and uncertain. But his. And that was enough. Outside, the desert wind blew across the land, indifferent to the small dramas of men. Stars wheeled overhead, ancient and unchanging. The frontier kept being the frontier. But here, in this way station built by people who refused to give up, there was light and warmth and the possibility of tomorrow. Cole Harlan closed his eyes and slept without dreams. When he woke, it would be to another day of building, and he was ready for it.